All right, everybody, here we go. We are now live. Thanks for joining us today. We've got another great topic, really relevant topic for today and where our market is at in regards to placing an offer on a home purchase. Things to know, things to consider. We're joined by our co-host to talk about on the lending side, what things we need to do to best position you in order to compete in this now competitive market, or even in the future, just generally speaking, in regards to best positioning yourself for a home purchase. We'll bring on our co-host, Chase Hodgson with Summit Funding. How you doing today, Chase?
I am so good today, Jerod. It's good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you as well. Thanks for hopping on and sharing the lending side of the equation with folks that are out there in the market and trying to compete. We've chatted about what we expect to happen, and it's here. We're now seeing multiple offers, a competitive landscape. So we're going to talk them through how to best survive that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, huh? Might want to go back and listen to some of the earlier episodes about what we talked about, and now we're here. It's
Yeah,
I'm hearing it all over the place. Inventory is still a problem.
yeah.
Doesn't matter where the rates are at, right? So makes for a difficult market.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's chat, talk them through it. But real quick, I have a couple of housekeeping items. Real quick, for those of you that I haven't met, my name is Jerod Lee. I'm the associate broker and team lead with My Home Connection. Excuse me, our sponsor for today is the perfect home buying process. We've spent the last couple of decades developing this out to help make the home purchase process as smooth and efficient and as pleasant as possible. We've got a number of different tools that we bring to the table. The biggest is probably the no obligation consultation, combined with the offer that Chase has partnered with us on to bring up to $500 to the table for your appraisal, and we'll help out with up to $500 on your home inspection, both at closing. But we've got a lot of different reports we want to send you, a comprehensive relocation guide, weekly podcast series to answer certainly most, if not all, of your questions, and then we got some really critical secrets that we want to share with you. So with that, we'll bring Chase back on. I do want to briefly just share where this topic came from, and that is I'd bumped into a couple that my heart went out to them. They were on their third offer in this now new market and just really frustrated. They did have an agent, so I had to be obviously you know very sensitive to that relationship, but you could just clearly tell that they were just really frustrated. And I kept encouraging them to go back to the agent. But the point was that it prompted my thought in regards to things that people should know before they go in. It's pretty obvious that this couple had just jumped in both feet and didn't really kind of know the lay of the land or what it would take to compete. So here we are.
Yeah, it's an interesting market to say the least, right? We've come to where interest rates have trickled back up, but it really hasn't slowed things. To your point, I've had several clients already this year in multiple offer situations, and you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared to win the offer when inventory is low. A lot of people competing for the same house, and you want to be able to position yourself as the front runner for that type of situation.
Yeah, no, we've talked in the past before it got competitive about just being prepared, and that we're going to sound like a broken record or beating dead horse here, but really the sooner you engage to know where you're at, and maybe you're at a great place, and that's good. You're potentially ready to go, but most people can stand to improve their situation just a little bit, to either change the loan type that they're in or up their credit score for a better interest rate. I mean, there's a number of things that you can do to improve that. And that still stands no matter what our market is doing. Get in front of a lender first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that's always the first step. I sometimes say that the process is broken a little bit. I think all the online stuff has really gotten people to put the cart before the horse, right? Where, they get excited about a house, they find a house before they even know if they're ready. And so once you get in touch with your realtor, um, they need to send you over to a lender, right? You need to take care of that first. I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but like home buying it's two sides of your brain, right? It typically starts out with, a financial decision, like we're having a kid, we need to move up, or this is our first home. It's time to start our wealth building through real estate. But then they get on Zillow or they get on Redfin or any of those platforms out there, and they see the home that they just fall in love with, and then the emotional side of the brain kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
And once the emotional side kicks in, it really kind of shuts off of that financial side, and
Yep.
it's hard to get people back on track and get them ready, right? Because they can identify a property before they're ready, and then the chances of them getting that property are slim and none.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, and I don't want to belabor the point, but it used to be if you were going to go buy a car, you'd go to the bank, you'd get a loan, know what you're qualified for, and then you go buy a car. Same with the house. But for whatever reason, probably in large part the internet, we see cars, we see homes. It's easy to start window shopping and then go figure out if you can afford it, and that can be really to your detriment in the real estate space. Again, to
Yeah.
your point, the logic versus the emotional side of things. But when I talk about the next step was knowing the situation. So we kind of just rehashed the importance of getting in front of you as a lender sooner than later. But really, the next step is that we're going to need to communicate, you as the lender, me as the agent, is what is the landscape. And we have my analogy would be a hand that we're going to play. Right? It could be a weak hand. It can be a strong hand. Hopefully it's strong because we've helped you make it strong. If it's not, it is what it is. And then we have to gauge our timelines based upon what we have. So, to share, this is what's going on. If you're looking in this area of town of this price point, you're going to be in a competitive situation. What types of offers are we seeing? Are we seeing cash offers? You're not a cash offer. Are we seeing cash and conventional offers? You're not either one of those, and you're a government subsidized loan, and the things to consider with what the market, the sellers are seeing out there, and does it even make sense to kind of engage? And we just need to be realistic about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to just go into step one again, like what you're discussing, I mean, that's the first step, right? That's always the first step, whether it's, we're talking about a very competitive market and a situation where you have to be here, but for your best interest, leveraging an experienced real estate agent and an experienced lender, that's always the first step, right? And once you've got in contact with those folks, then it's much easier, right? Because now you have somebody that can guide your ship for you, right?
Yeah,
Got to have.
absolutely. Yeah, and you kind of foreshadowed. I go down to the bottom here. What a listing agent's going to look for. So, twofold. This is for you as a client, a consumer out in the field, working with somebody that knows the ins and the outs and how to accurately articulate, explain the market. And then later on, you and I are going to have to prove to the sellers, to the listing agent, that we're prepared and qualified. So, we've talked about, how to understand the situation, understand the circumstances. We've to some degree talked about being the most prepared and qualified. And there might be a time to say, what, not now, but in 6 months from now. We can share with you the season, right? There's definitely times where demand comes on stronger seasonally than other times. And we might need to say, hey, we need 3 to 6 months or whatever it is to better position you financially on the lending side. But by the way, the market's going to be a little more conducive to what you need. Maybe you need seller concession. We're not getting that right now. You need help with your closing costs. The market, the sellers are just in too much of the catbird seat. You're not likely to get that right now, but let's get you in a better position, maybe qualify you for a different loan or better rates for more power. And then by that time, the market will maybe tame down a little bit and we can find some homes that sellers will give you some sellers concessions.
Yeah, and obviously I shouldn't say obviously, because that's why we're on here. We're trying to help people. But that's where we want to be, right? So once once you're in touch and getting that figured out, like that's when your lender is gonna step up and advise you, hopefully advise you in your best financial interest, not just appease whatever whims that you're having, right? Or because we don't want the home buying process to be to just be a quick decision, right? You want to step by step and make sure you're making the right financial decisions for you and your family. So during the to your point, during the qualification process, that's your lender's job, right? To help you understand where you are financially and give you a view of what's going on in the market, the different loan products, and the things that could help you out. When you decide to move forward and put the offers in, and one of those steps is, if you decide to move forward in this type of market where we're seeing multiple offers, how to position yourself in the best light. To your point, knowing whether the properties you're looking at are getting offers accepted if they're a government type loan. Not necessarily any loan bias, but condition of the property can affect those types of loans. And you
Right.
want to
And
be.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jerod.
Well, I didn't want to rehash, but I just briefly mentioned that we had talked about this in a prior podcast, that we do need to know your loan type, because it'll potentially disqualify some homes because of the condition of the property. So that's even yet another reason why we need to know what loan program you're in, or be able to get you in a position where you can qualify for different loan types. Maybe we want a home that's in a little rougher condition because I want to put in sweat equity, or they're willing to give seller concessions more readily, or whatever it might be. Let's position you for that, but it's super important.
Yeah, very important. And then, if you're going to move forward and you're in a competitive market, but you have to buy now, then you can possibly go through the pre-underwriting. There's a difference, right, between a pre-qual and a pre-approval, and that's again, having someone that is experienced and knows what you need. They can help you walk through that. You can go through the underwriting process like up front if you take the time and are prepared. You can go through that up front. Then you have a pre-approval, which does one of two things. It gives the seller much more confidence in you as a buyer, and two, it allows you to make an offer with a shorter closing, which also could help position you depending on what the seller's needs are.
Yeah, I think that's super important to know, is that pretty much any lender could rubber stamp a pre-qual letter. You give them some just very basic information. Here's your letter. Give it to your realtor, and you're off to the races. That could be a really bad scenario, because not only might you not have letters that are super helpful in winning the deal, but could get you jammed up if you get an accepted offer and you're truly not qualified. That's definitely not where you want to be.
Right.
But the better end of the spectrum is, I'm a listing agent. I'm looking at offer that is accompanied with not just a pre-qual, but a pre-approval.
Right.
Can you spend just a little time explaining the difference that they do?
Yeah, it's actually fairly simple, right? A pre-qual is you tell your lender how much money you make, and they do they put it all in the system. They take a look at your credit score and your debts or your monthly liabilities, and they say, okay, from what you make, looks like you're going to qualify. We can send you a pre-qual letter and you can go shopping. That is not how I like to do things, but it is pretty standard for the industry. It gets you out shopping immediately, and it helps you keep moving forward. But to Jerod's point, problems can come up. The lending industry has a lot of guidelines and regulations that they have to follow. And so pre-approvals, in my opinion, always the best way to go. That's where you submit all your income documentation, your 30 days pay stubs, last 2 years W-2s, tax returns, whatever that looks like for the job that you have. And then you take that and you not just do an automated underwrite, which every lender has to do. There's a couple different systems, DU and LP. Basically, their system, they're the same system that everybody uses. You submit a file to that, and it tells you whether you have an approval or not. That's an automated, approval. But but all that does is allow you to move forward to the next step to where you would submit to an actual physical human underwriter, right? That is now going to go into all the little details and make sure that there's nothing that they see contradicts, the guidelines for the loan type that you're in. And so that's the difference. You can do, and depending on the person, an automated approval may be fine for them to shop. But we often see issues with types of income, overtime, bonus pay, fluctuations in hours, and things like that can create an issue with an actual physical underwriter. And so going through that entire process, right? And now you've basically taken a file and you've collected all the documentation that you need. You've got your automated approval, and then you go to a physical underwriter and you have that approval. Now all you have to do is give them the address. And it's a nice, short, quick, easy close because all of the work's been done up front.
Yeah. Yeah. No situation of potentially jeopardizing, well, not no, but far less likelihood of losing your earnest money or, getting jammed up or not even being entertained for offers in a multiple offer situation because somebody's like, I'm looking at a prequal on this client, Apple, fairly comparable buyers, but one's got a prequal and one's got a pre-approval letter. That extra time spent,
Right. And it can allow you to close much quicker, right? And at that point, really the only thing that's going to hold you up is issues with the property, right? If you've got the approval and all of your income and documentation and credit has been approved, now we pair that with a property, you go through your inspection period. If something comes up, the only thing that's going to kill the deal at that time would be property related issues, to which you're going to want to know anyway. So much smoother, cleaner, easier. The problem with that goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the system being a little bit backwards, right? You have to take the time to do that up front. You have to give your lender time. You have to submit your documentation. It can go fairly quickly, as long as you're committed to the process as a buyer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we've decided that we're prepared. We're out in the field, and now we're starting to submit offers. We're trying to create as clean and as much of a prepared offer as we can. So we're going to have the offer, and then we're going to have the hopefully the pre-approval letter that we're presenting to the listing agent, who's going to share it with the sellers. The other that I wanted to briefly share is that they're going to vet us as the lender and the agent. If I receive a offer, I want to know that this lender has a good track record and in meeting contractual timelines, taking good care of their clients. We're not just throwing something into a big bureaucracy that kind of sits there and gets spun around and we get extensions, or worse yet, we can't close. Yeah. And then I, as a listing agent, I'm going to look at that agent as, do you have experience in doing what you're doing, or do you have a good team backing you up? Because I can't really justify too much of having you learn on my client's time how to help your buyer. Granted, I'm going to ask as many questions as I can, but I'm sure going to feel a lot better knowing that the agent has experience helping their clients be successful in purchasing.
Right.
So, I'm kind of delicately saying find an experienced agent and lender, but I probably just need to say it,
Yeah, you do. So like, gosh, you know as well as I do, we're coming out of a time period where business was falling off the trees, right? Rates were, when you're talking about being in the high twos, low threes, unprecedented real estate times and transactions were easy to come by. But as this gets harder and harder, you want to make sure that you have somebody that knows the market, not just knows the market, but knows how to guide you through that market. And so that's on both sides, right? What's going to get this offer accepted? Where, what areas of the valley are pertinent to you and your family and your needs. And there's just so much. I go back to, with all all the nonsense that's going in, with lawsuits and stuff like that coming back on real estate companies, people just don't understand how important a real estate agent is in a transaction. Like for 99.9% of the public, they need that help. Like these are legal contracts, and this purchase process is you need somebody to guide you through that and make sure that you avoid the pitfalls and put you in a good spot.
Yeah, I've literally heard people say, what is that in the way of a contract? Do you have a buyer's rep agreement? And they're like, no. Well, oh, but I've put in an offer or two. It's like, well, you didn't put an offer or two in without a buyer's representation agreement or an agency form. And if I ask you what those are, my hope is you not only know, you should know what the contract is and what the content of the contract is.
Yeah.
Versus today's world, it's very easy for us to DocuSign something, send you it, and on your phone, start clicking a bunch of boxes.
Yep.
That's not helpful. And I've heard folks be super frustrated that they're in a relationship with an agent that's not helping them accomplish their goals and their objectives, not knowing that they're in a contractually obligated, arrangement.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can cost you money. Like it
Yeah.
literally costs you money.
Yeah.
And it could be more than your earnest money, depending on how far down you get and, what goes on. And not only that, there's so much that goes on inside a real estate transaction that people don't know, right? Because that's our jobs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
Myself as a lender and you as an agent is, it's like I use the my turbulence story basically is what I call it, right? Like, so you need a captain of the plane. When you get on the airplane, the captain says, hey, we're going to experience some turbulence or whatever, but it's my job to avoid as much of that as possible and make this flight as smooth as possible.
Yeah.
So with a real estate transaction, there's always turbulence, right? But it's our job to help avoid as much as possible, so you don't really know what's going on, right? And it stays here.
Yeah.
And we're in the back, right, paddling like ducks, trying to make sure everything's going smooth for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, so we've talked about that. We've got the offer in. The listing agent's looking at this information, wants to know who the lender is, wants to know who the agent is, but they're also going to want to know that you're a committed buyer, because they've probably got something on the back end. They're moving out of state, or they've got another house being built, or what have you. So we've got to be able to communicate and articulate where you're at in the process, such that the listing agent and the seller have a sense of confidence in that.
Yeah.
And if we're willy-nilly kind of all over the place, it's really tough to articulate that. But I guess ultimately what I'm leading up to is the relationship that the buyer's agent has with the listing agent. They're going to be able to speak to and instill confidence in that listing agent, who then's going to instill more confidence in the sellers that these folks can get this stuff done, right? Hey,
Absolutely.
Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm familiar with the lender. They can get it done. Hey, I know the agent. They can get it done. And I'm being told that these are very committed buyers. I recommend this offer above these other ones for all of these reasons. And in some cases, there's nuances that you would want to pull out of the listing agent that are important to the seller, because it's not just always about price. Mm-hmm. I've helped people win their bid on offers because there was things that I was aware of, that became aware of through the listing agent, that was important to the seller, and it wasn't just price. I think one of them was an elderly couple that needed some time to rent back and get out. I don't like those situations because my client becomes a reluctant landlord, but that was something that was super important to the seller, to not upend their life too much. And we put some provisions in place to make sure that didn't get sideways. But,
Mm-hmm.
I guess my point is, I see all too often buyer's agents, they don't even talk to the listing agent. They just lob in offers.
Yeah.
Here's the paperwork, and they don't know anything about your buyers. They only see what's on paper, and your first reaction is, I think, as a listing agent, this other agent on the other end doesn't really know what they're doing. Because if
Yeah.
they did, they'd know the importance of us talking together and you instilling a sense of confidence in me that your buyers can get it done.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry for the rant. That one's I'm
no,
obviously
you're good.
passionate
No,
about.
I like it. I like it. I'm old school sales guy, right? I just am. I'm a relationship person.
Yeah.
I like to know who I'm working with. Um, and relationships are everything, and again, it goes back to there's all this online technology and everything, and that's great. We're doing business in a new way, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of a transaction, knowing both sides, right? Like to your point, having an experienced agent that knows the other agents in the valley and takes the time to find out the seller situation and what is most important to them is huge, especially in a multiple offer situation. Having a lender that's experienced, that knows most of the agents in town, that when they hear their name they have confidence that they're going to close a transaction, and that lender is also reaching out to the listing agent and saying, hey, these borrowers are really qualified, really motivated, and we're going to get this done. Instill that confidence for that multiple offer situation.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Those
You,
relationships are irreplaceable, right?
yeah,
Like there's no way to give the same kind of confidence to your sellers.
yeah, for a good listing agent that thinks they're gonna, you know, propose or recommend this offer to their seller, they're gonna probably call the lender.
Hmm.
And if this lender was just willy nilly sending around prequal letters and really doesn't know the intimacies of, obviously there's certain things they can't share, but
Right.
if that listing agent calls the lender and says, hey, I was wondering, can your buyer complete this, this transaction? Are they well qualified? And they
Yeah.
barely struggle to remember their name. That's not very confidence inspiring.
But it's not. No.
So anyway, um, it's always important to dot your I's and cross your T's. But in today's market, it's even more important because you will, I don't know about will, but you'll likely just spin your wheels. It's just going to get very frustrating. It'll either put you in a high liability situation or frustrate you, annoy you, or, all the above. And that's what we're trying to eliminate. Be
Yeah.
prepared. Have a good story to tell when you put the offer in on the home that best positions you for success.
Yes. And that's to your point, like that is it's all about the lender and their agent that are representing you, especially in this kind of a market. You don't want to get in a situation where somebody is recommending you do something that puts you in a bad financial position, right? There's situations where you don't need an inspection or an appraisal, right? Because those are some items that you can get rid of to help move the transaction along. But is that in your best interest at all times, right? Knowing those things are really, really important. And just be prepared.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
just take the time to get prepared first before you go out shopping.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this will be our last point because we're coming up on the half an hour mark here, but you did touch on a good point is the more competitive the market, the more you could potentially put yourself in a vulnerable position. I hear things like, let's waive, can we waive the inspection?
Yeah.
Okay, that means a couple of different things. I would never recommend totally waiving the inspection. In the hottest of markets, my buyers have said inspection for buyers' purposes only, meaning we're not going to come at you about a bunch of things. Obviously, if there's something catastrophic or health related or what have you, we're either going to bow out, terminate, or you're going to remedy the situation. But I've literally seen agents say waived inspection, didn't have an inspection, bought the home, which makes me cringe. So I'm just saying to be prepared and to know what you could and should do, and the ramifications of what you could and should do is going to save you a lot. Worst case scenario would be I didn't do an inspection, moved into a house. A couple years later, I've had mold in the crawl or in the attic space. Anyway, I'm not,
100%. Yeah. That's, bringing up again to just belaboring the point of having an experienced agent on your side. It's invaluable, because as you get into these types of markets, right? Like you say, the easiest way to win is to give up things, right? And if you're giving up something that's going to put you in a horrible position down the road, what sense does that make?
Yeah.
And so you need somebody that's giving you the right advice. Um, I've seen the same thing with appraisal, getting rid of appraisal. Well, then it's, is it 3, 4, 5 years? Because you've overpaid, and how long before you have equity?
Yeah.
How much sense does that make for your family financially? Just a lot of different things. A lot of different things can come into play.
Absolutely. And I've never lost an offer because we've said for inspection for buyer's purposes.
Mm-hmm.
The sellers will say, you know what, I can understand why you'd want to do that, but I'm going to take this offer over here where they completely waived it. I'm sure it happens, but I haven't lost it. So I'm just saying, don't give up what you don't have to give up.
Right.
For sure.
Right. Absolutely. And then being prepared and having a pre-underwritten and a really clean approval, to go back to where we started from, that also can allow you to compete with cash offers.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's going to really shorten the amount of time that your transaction takes.
Yeah, especially if you identify the kind of the unseen important things to a seller, and you're like, ooh, I'm glad I talked to the listing agent and found this out. And the cash buyers with their agent didn't even talk to the listing agent, just threw in a number, and lost it because they didn't ask the important questions.
Right. Right.
So anyway, well, we've talked about a lot, and we could talk about a lot more, but really we wanted to touch on the highlights today, that the better prepped you are, the more experienced agents and lenders, the more trusted advisors that you have, the higher degree of likelihood of success that you're going to have. So feel free to reach out to us. We'll kind of button things up here. I do want to help you, show you how to get in touch with Chase here. Oops, sorry, I pulled up our site. Summitfunding.net.com. You can reach Chase at his contact information here. I'm sure he'd love to chat with you, answer any questions you have, and be of help. If you want to take advantage of that that perfect home buying process that we talked about earlier, that's simple and straightforward. Just reach out to us and reference that. We'd be glad to help. You can either comment below or reach us at our website, obviously myhomeconnection.com, and we have our phone number, email address up here in the top right. So, oops, there we go. Wrong screen. There we go. Anyway, so we talked about a lot. I appreciate you jumping on today, Chase, and sharing with everybody.
Always enjoy it. I appreciate you having me on. It's always fun. I'm excited for the year. It's going to be a good market, but we got to have everybody prepared for it, because it's not going to be a good market.
There you go. Absolutely. Thanks again, Chase, and we'll wish everybody a blessed one.
Have a good week.